So you're excited the rates are coming down because you've been wanting to buy another property and you just don't know what to do. Do we keep our house and rent it out? Do we sell it? So many options that we have. And I really love that process because it's really figuring out what is your priorities, what are your long-term goals, and what can you afford? But I think that you have to have all the information in order to be able to make that decision. So we're going to talk about a couple of the things that you need to consider when do I keep my home or do I sell it? Now, biggest thing is going to be, why would I keep my home as a rental? Well, most people right now that are considering keeping their home as a rental and buying another have a really low rate on their current mortgage, right? You're like, I have such a great rate and it's such a low payment. It's hard to walk away from that. Well, how do we make that work for you? Now, when you already have a home as a primary residence, when you buy it, you can rent out the home. If you've been already living in the home, you can rent it out. You don't have to get a new loan. That's often a question that I get is, well, do I have to get like a new loan for it to be a rental? Is it going to be a higher interest rate? Because I heard that rental properties have higher interest rates. Once you have the loan, that loan is your loan. So that's another benefit of keeping that loan that you currently have. Because if you have a low interest rate and a low payment, and you can rent it out for more, that means you now already have cash flow, which means the difference between your rental income and your expenses is now how much money you have that you're getting as income for the rental property. So this is just a basic scenario that I just went over with the client. And so you can see here their rental income, we're expecting about $26,23. Their expenses, which is included in here, their current mortgage, including property taxes, insurance. And then I also included a cushion of a couple $100s a month for expenses. Now, when you become a landlord, you are required to still have to make sure that there's no health and safety issues. And when things break, you are the call. So you need to make sure that you have money set aside or that you start saving money to be set aside, that you can afford those expenses. And we'll talk about different strategies if it's something that you want to move forward and things that you need to consider. You want to make sure that you're working with the right team to get you set up as you start owning properties, because there is a specific way that you want to go about doing that. But in this scenario, you have rental income $26.23, your expenses $21.82. At the end of the month, you have $441 cash flow. So that's additional money that you have each month. And that's with me taking into consideration a couple $100 for maintenance and expenses that are gonna, come up. Now, that cash flow, you have a couple different options that you can do with that money that you're gonna have each month. You can put it towards the new home, meaning that you wanted a certain payment on the new home. Well, if you're going to keep this property and it's going to give you $440 a month, that can now be allocated, if you will, in your total budgeting of money that can be used towards the new mortgage, which is going to be additional cash flow that you have. So oftentimes people say, well, I don't want a mortgage payment over $3,500 on the new home. Well, if you're getting cash flow from this one, that also goes into the equation of affordability. So we consider that factor. Now, I do recommend, if you can, obviously, whatever money that you get from the cash flow, make sure that you're keeping enough held back as a cushion for maintenance that needs to be done to the property first, and then reallocate those funds to the new purchase. Now, with that being said, on this, that what you're looking at is a 10-year overview. So that means that now in 10 years, how much you received in income, expenses, and your cash flow. Another thing that you have to consider, though, that goes into the equation and you want to meet with your CPA is that there's major tax benefits when you have an investment property. That's why I love it. So we fill out a Schedule E, which is on your tax schedule. And on that Schedule E, it says what's your income that you received, but then you get all your deductions. And then you have your net income that you received from the rental, which is either a positive or a negative. Now, there's other depreciating factors that you get to take into account on a rental property beyond just your normal expenses, meaning that you can depreciate a home for so many years as a rental property, which is now going to be an additional deduction that you get, which is why a lot of people own real estate. So your actual cash flow ends up being more. What do I mean by that? Well, if you file your tax return, and now at the end of the year, you have these tax savings, and let's say that you get an extra $2,400 in tax savings at the end of the year. Well, that equates to $200 more a month. So either you can wait till the end of the year and have that additional tax savings, or you can change your payroll deductions to where you get maybe $200 more a month. That's going to help with you being able to afford the new mortgage payment. So there's a lot of factors to consider. And a lot of times you don't realize that these are things that are going to be an additional benefit to you that we have to take into the equation, which may make it to where you look at it and say, you know what, I think it might be a good opportunity for us to keep it as a rental because we're going to gain massive wealth. So what does that look like? this schedule here, which is what we would be going over, is going over a whole cash flow analysis, which again, we'd go over together later, which goes over all the maintenance fees, all that kind of stuff that we just went over. But what does that mean as far as return on investment? Now, it's going to depend on the area, how much the home appreciates, so on and so forth. But let's just say that this home continues to appreciate at 5.01. This was done for Placer County. So this is based on what is forecasted for the area. So forecasted appreciation is 5.01. So what does that mean? Well, after 10 years, that $500,000 home is now $815,000 home. The original balance on this one, you can see the remaining principal balance. That means that in that 10-year time period, you earned $315,000 in appreciation. And your amortization is how much more you've paid down your loan balance. So in 10 years, you've paid down your loan balance an additional $77,000. So you have that now as equity on top of your appreciation. Because remember, the difference from your value of your home, of what it's worth and what you owe, is your equity. That's how much in your home that you have, technically that's yours, right? So if you sold the home, that's your money, your equity that's in the home. So you have your appreciation, which is how much your value went up, as well as your amortization. Now, I mean, even playing devil's advocate, what if you only gained 2.5%, which if you look at all of the history, there's never been a period where it's only had a 2.5% appreciation within a time frame of, a 10-year period. So the likelihood that that's going to happen is pretty unlikely. But even if you said that, I mean, let's take $150,000, $160,000 plus your $80,000 on return that you're getting from keeping this home as a rental property. Not to include all of the other benefits that you get, income, so on and so forth. So if you continue down here, you can see your rental income was $414, your appreciation, your gross revenue, minus your expenses for the home that we still have to take into account, your profit. So your return on investment is huge when you have rental properties. This is why people have rental properties. Is it going to take some effort from you? Yes. Does it mean that you're going to have to get really good with your finances to make sure that you have an emergency fund on the rental property to be able to do the upgrades when needed? Yes. Does it mean you're going to have to get a property manager to take care of the property, or you're going to have to make sure that you take care of the property when something goes wrong? Yes. Is it worth the rate of return that you see here? Is there any other way that you're going to be able to build this much rate of return? You pick comfort or you pick strategy. That's really where everything is in life, right? So you can have the comfort of, I'm just going to sell my house and buy the other house. Totally fine. You just need to know what your risk assessment is and what your comfortability level is. If you say, you know what, it's just not something I want to deal with. I just want to have my home and I want to have just the one home and not have to deal with it. Totally fine. My job as a mortgage advisor is to prevent options and let you know what the return could be and what that looks like. So does it require effort? Yes. Does it require some risk? Yes. Does it require that you have to take care of the property? Yes. But it also has one of the biggest returns that you're going to have. So that's why I always like to go over, the different benefits that you're going to have when you have a property. Does it make sense for you to keep it? Now, the other question is going to be, well, that's great, Kristen. I see that I'm going to have $400 or $500 that I'm going to have in cash flow from this home. But if I don't have as much money to put down on the new home, then that means that I'm not going to be able to afford it, right? And I don't want to have a higher payment. So let's talk through that. So what we're looking at here, and of course, every situation is different. We have to look at it for you. But let's just say that you sell the home and buy. So let's say that you buy another home at $700,000 and you sell it and you take the net profit. Let's say you have $140,000. So let's say that you take the net profit and you apply it towards the mortgage. So in this, you could see that, and this is, just a basic payment for California, Placer, Sacramento County-ish, what you're looking at, including property taxes and insurance. You can see what your payment is, and that would require about $140,000 for the down payment and closing costs. But let's say that you keep the home and buy and you put less down. Well, now you're looking at a higher payment, right? So yes, you're not going to have this $4,300 payment. You're going to have a $5,000 payment. It requires about $45,000. So you do have to have the funds in order to purchase a new home. So we can look at those different options, but you do have to have the down payment and closing costs, which needs to come from your funds, your savings, your checking, gift funds. Maybe you have a retirement account, something of those nature that you have assets. You do need the funds to purchase. So we do have to have money to be able to do this. But those funds are a lot less, right? And your payment is going to be around $5,000. So let's just call it, you're going to be looking at $600 and something more a month. Well, you're going to be cash flowing on the other property $400 or $500 a month. So really you're paying a couple $100 more a month in order for you to be able to keep both properties. Keep an account that you need to make sure that you have some funds set aside, or you build some funds for the rental property for things that come up for that. But this is a way, if you have some funds available or a plan for you to start working on now, if you think that, yeah, I would like to consider keeping my home, create a massive saving strategy right now if you don't have the funds available. Get very attentional and put as much as you can back so that you're in a position that you can keep your home and purchase the other home if you want to earn that rate of return that we just went over. So yes, your payment's going to be higher. The other property will help cash flow it, but it is going to be a little bit more. But let's take it a step further and you say, that really is a little bit more than we wanted to pay. And let's say that you can qualify and you can do it, but it's more than you really wanted to afford. Well, if you were to do this strategy and you kept your home and you got a 6.5 rate today, and when rates come down, let's say 5%, may drop lower, but I'm just being conservative and saying 5%. Well, you could see in the future, your payment, if you're in a position to be able to refinance and we put you in a lower interest rate in the next several years, your payment's going to go down. So eventually it's going to be a more affordable payment. Now, I do not like selling that you're going to have a lower payment. I'm not a seller, I'm an educator. Based on all the statistics, all the facts, all the data, everything points to interest rates coming down. It all is going to be tied to inflation. So if you follow all the data, as inflation comes down, rates come down. That always, every single time. Every time that inflation came down, rates come down. Number one thing that the feds are focusing on, inflation. They said, we will do whatever it takes to bring inflation down, which is what they're doing. So the likelihood rates are coming down just from that is very likely. But there's so much other data that supports it. When you look at the jobless claims, when you look at recessionary periods, all of that goes to lower interest rates. When? We don't know. But the next couple of years is anticipated that interest rates will be back down, probably in the 5s, maybe even lower. So eventually you're going to be in a lower rate. The other thing that you need to consider is the type of market to be able to sell and buy. Now, if you keep your home, then it's not contingent on buying another home. And what I mean by that is that when you're in a position that you want to purchase another property, there's not going to be a condition of your offer that you have to sell your home in order to buy, which helps make your offer, helps negotiations. Because if you don't have any additional conditions, they're going to be more likely to accept your offer over somebody that has a condition that they have to sell their home, because it's more risk to the seller if your home does not sell. So if you're looking to sell and buy, you do not want to sell and buy in a low interest rate market, because if it's low interest rates, you have more buyers. And when there's more buyers, especially when we're in low inventory, that means you have less room for negotiations. If you were in the period during COVID when interest rates were low and you were trying to sell and buy, your offer was not getting accepted. And the only ones that did is if you had backup options, such as creative financing for what we call bridge financing, which allows you to be able to buy without selling, very expensive. So you end up paying a ton of money to be able to get your offer accepted when you have to sell and buy in a low interest rate market. So if you keep your home and you buy, then you don't have that problem. But if you need to sell and buy, then you need to consider the market that you are selling and buying in, because you would want to do that now before interest rates get lower. As they continue to get lower, for every 1% more that they go lower in interest rate, you have 3 to 5 million more buyers that are in the market buying. So it really makes it to where you're not going to get your offer accepted most likely. And if you do, that means that property is not one that is a big fan and there's not a lot of offers on it. And you may be paying a lot of money in order to get other financing that doesn't require you to have to sell and buy. So it's really important that you understand the market that you're in as well to be able to look at your options. But if you are trying to figure out, do we keep our property or sell? Let's look at your numbers. Let's dive in. I love putting together some mortgage strategies and options and planning specifically for you so that you can make that decision and you can start your plan today, whether it be that you start massive savings so that you can keep your home and purchase another home, or whether that we look and say, okay, I know that I want to buy another property in the next 2 to 5 years. You really need to consider that you explore that opportunity before rates go down. Because like I said, it's going to end up costing you a lot more money by waiting. And knowing the interest rates go down, you can buy the home today at the prices today and then get a lower rate in the future, which is what all the buyers today in this market are winning in this market, and a strategy to save and create more wealth for them as well. So reach out to me. Let's schedule your consultation and decide what's going to be right for you. If you have any other friends or family that you think might benefit from this video, please share.